There's a strange pattern happening across Canada that most people aren't noticing. While urban housing costs force families into smaller spaces and longer commutes, certain communities, quiet, remote, almost forgotten, are making it easier to live with land, space, and drastically lower bills. The contradiction isn't just geographic, it's structural. Most people assume off-grid living means isolation or hardship. But what if the real story is about towns that accidentally built systems where independence costs less than dependency, where heating, housing, and daily expenses don't require constant income pressure? If you're tired of watching your paycheck disappear into rent, utilities, and bills that never stop climbing, subscribe. Because this channel is about learning how Canadians are building lives with fewer bills, more control, and real financial breathing room. This might look like a list about remote towns, land prices, or homesteading culture. It's not. What you're seeing is part of a larger economic adjustment happening across rural Canada, driven by population decline, infrastructure limits, and the quiet recognition that not every region can sustain modern cost structures. This isn't conspiracy. It's demographics meeting geography. You're about to see 12 Canadian communities where off-grid or low-dependency living is more accessible than most people realize. These aren't ranked. They're examples of different systems, climates, and trade-offs. Watch through to the end. The pattern matters more than any single location. Some of these places are harsh, some are surprisingly mild, but all of them make independence easier than dependence. Living costs in Canada have changed faster than wages. Housing, utilities, groceries, insurance, all rising while income stays flat. For decades, the answer was move to where the jobs are. But concentration creates competition, and competition drives prices up. Meanwhile, rural communities are aging and shrinking. Some towns tighten rules, others loosen restrictions, offer land incentives, or don't enforce codes that make building expensive. This matters because lifestyle structure now determines financial stress more than income alone. A $40,000 salary with no rent and wood heat goes further than $80,000 with expensive rent and car payments. That's the context. Now here are the examples. Number 1, Dawson City, Yukon. Dawson City is one of the few places in Canada where you can legally live off-grid within a recognized municipality and still access basic services when needed. Winter temperatures drop to -40 degrees regularly. Summer brings 24-hour daylight and a short, intense growing season. Daily life revolves around wood heat, diesel generators, and a tight-knit community of about 1,400 people. The pace is slow, the winters are long, the culture rewards self-reliance. Population sits around 1,400 and remains stable but aging. Housing runs between $150,000 and $300,000 for older homes, with land parcels available outside town limits. Fuel costs are high but offset by no property pressure. Work includes tourism, mining support, arts grants, and remote opportunities. Yukon offers relocation grants and renewable energy rebates. Here's something unexpected. You can still find unoccupied Crown land within a day's drive. People here measure winter in cords of wood, not months. Groceries cost 30 to 50% more than southern Canada, and delivery timelines stretch weeks in winter. Imagine waking in a cabin you built yourself, heating with wood you cut, watching the northern lights from your porch, knowing your only recurring bill is satellite internet. The landscape is harsh, but honest. The community is small, but functional. The trade-off is clear: extreme cold and high food costs for land freedom and minimal financial pressure. Your neighbors are artists, miners, and people who chose distance over convenience. Winter darkness lasts months. Supply runs require planning, but mortgage pressure doesn't exist here the way it does elsewhere. This is northern Canada at its most unfiltered, raw, beautiful, and unforgiving. If you can handle the cold, the isolation becomes freedom. Could you handle 6 months of darkness for the trade-off of land freedom? Drop a yes or no in the comments. Number 2, Stewart, British Columbia. Stewart sits at the tip of British Columbia's northern coastline, accessible by road, but so remote that municipal oversight is minimal and land is cheap. This is a former mining town with spectacular mountain views, glacier-fed rivers, and fewer than 400 residents. Winters are wet and heavy. The economy is quiet. People fish, hunt, and keep to themselves. It's not rugged, it's just distant enough that no one bothers you. Population hovers around 400 and declining. Housing ranges from 100,000 to 200,000 for older homes. Taxes are low and services minimal. Work comes from fishing, forestry, tourism trickles, and remote income. British Columbia's Northern Living Allowance applies here, and there are no building inspections for rural properties. Something most people don't know, you're closer to Alaska than Vancouver. The grocery store closes early, and everyone knows when a new person arrives. Medical services require a drive to Terrace, 240 kilometers away, and cell service is patchy. Picture a life where your nearest neighbor is a kilometer away, your water comes from a creek, and your biggest expense is diesel for the generator. The mountains here are dramatic, snow-capped year-round. The rivers run cold and clear, wildlife is abundant. The town itself feels like it's waiting for something that might never come, but that waiting creates space. Space for building, thinking, living without permission. You won't get rich here, but you also won't drown in bills. The calculation is simple. Trade convenience and medical access for land, quiet, and financial control. Some people can't handle that trade. Others can't imagine living any other way. Would limited medical access stop you from living mortgage-free? Number 3. Manitoulin Island, Ontario. Manitoulin is the world's largest freshwater island, with multiple First Nations communities and a culture of subsistence living that quietly supports off-grid setups. Life here is slower than mainland Ontario. The island has forests, lakes, and farmland. Winters are cold but manageable. Summers are mild. The population is spread across small villages and rural properties. People grow food, fish, and heat with wood. Internet is available. Isolation is optional. Population sits around 13,000 and remains stable. Housing ranges from 150,000 to 300,000, and rural land is affordable. Cost pressure is moderate, lower than cities, higher than remote BC. Work includes tourism, agriculture, remote work, and seasonal trades. Ontario offers rural property tax relief. Here's the interesting part. Ferry access is free for residents. The rhythm of life follows the seasons, not the work week. Island life means planning ahead. If you forget something, the ferry schedule decides when you get it. Imagine tending a garden in summer, ice fishing in winter, and never paying rent again because you own your land outright. The island feels like Ontario's quiet rebellion, a place where Indigenous culture, farming tradition, and modern remote work coexist without conflict. You'll see solar panels next to tobacco drying sheds, tiny homes next to century farms. The infrastructure is decent. The cost is reasonable. The lifestyle is self-directed. This isn't extreme off-grid living. It's practical independence. You can be as connected or disconnected as you choose. The ferry ride becomes meditation. The island pace becomes normal, and the financial pressure that defines urban Ontario simply doesn't apply here. Could you adjust to island time, where spontaneity takes a backseat to planning? Number 4. Burns Lake, British Columbia. Burns Lake is small, affordable, and positioned in BC's interior, where forestry culture and off-grid living overlap naturally. This is logging country. The town has about 2,000 people, surrounded by lakes, forests, and crown land. Winters are cold and snowy. Summers are warm and dry. People here work seasonally, hunt, fish, and live simply. The culture is practical, not ideological. Population remains stable around 2,000. Housing ranges from 150,000 to 250,000. Cost pressure is low. Fuel and food are the main expenses. Work centers on forestry, trades, remote work, and guiding. BC offers rural internet subsidies, and building codes are loose outside town. Crown land recreational leases are still available nearby. Conversations revolve around weather, hunting season, and wood prices. Jobs are seasonal and weather dependent, so income can swing month to month. Picture a small cabin on leased land, heating with a wood stove, working seasonally, and spending winters reading, carving, or trapping. Burns Lake doesn't advertise itself. It doesn't need to. It's a place where people end up because the math works. Low housing costs, accessible land, seasonal work that pays enough to cover simple living. The lakes freeze solid in winter, becoming highways for snowmobiles and ice fishing. The forests are dense and productive. The community is small enough that everyone recognizes each other, but large enough that you're not under constant scrutiny. This is middle ground off-grid living, not as extreme as Yukon, not as connected as Ontario. It's BC interior practicality. Chainsaw, truck, wood stove, and Wi-Fi. That's the toolkit. Would you trade year-round work for seasonal income and more free time? Number 5. Atlin, British Columbia. Atlin is one of BC's smallest and most remote towns, where off-grid living is an alternative. It's default. Fewer than 450 people live here. The town sits on Atlin Lake, surrounded by mountains and wilderness. There's no cell service. Mail comes twice a week. People generate their own power, haul their own water, and live without pressure. It's quiet, cold, and stunningly beautiful. Population hovers around 450 and remains stable. Housing runs from 100,000 to 200,000. Cost pressure is very low. Land is cheap and services are minimal. Work includes guiding, arts, remote freelancing, and pensions. You get benefits from both Yukon and BC borders, and regulations are minimal. Some residents actually cross into Yukon for cheaper fuel. People here plan their lives around the supply barge schedule. No hospital, no high school, no grocery chain. Everything requires planning. Imagine living in a place where your neighbors are artists, retirees, and wilderness guides, where no one asks what you do for money. Atlin operates on a different frequency. The lake is impossibly blue. The mountains are sharp and close. The silence is profound. You hear your own thoughts here. You notice things, bird calls, weather shifts, the way light changes on water. This is what people mean when they say getting away from it all. Except here it's not escapism, it's just reality. You haul water, you split wood, you troubleshoot your solar setup. And in exchange, you live without financial anxiety. No rent, no mortgage, no utility creep, just systems you control and a landscape that doesn't change to accommodate you. You adapt or you leave. Most who stay wouldn't consider leaving. Could you live without cell service if it meant zero cost pressure? Number 6. Fogo Island, Newfoundland. Fogo Island combines traditional fishing culture with a modern off-grid mindset, supported by community resilience programs. This is Atlantic Canada's version of island independence. About 2,500 people live across several villages. The culture is rooted in fishing, but younger residents are experimenting with renewable energy, tiny homes, and remote work. The landscape is rocky, windswept, and dramatic. Population is around 2,500 and slowly declining. Housing ranges from 100,000 to 250,000. Cost pressure is moderate. Heating is expensive, but housing is cheap. Work includes fishing, tourism, arts funding, and remote work. Newfoundland offers rural broadband and energy rebates. The island has a thriving artist residency program. Winter storms can isolate the island for days, and everyone stocks accordingly. Weather dictates everything. Ferry cancellations mean no supplies, no travel, no flexibility. Picture a restored saltbox house, heated with a pellet stove overlooking the Atlantic, where your only debt is firewood. Fogo Island has become unexpectedly famous for its art and architecture, but beneath that is a working community that's been self-reliant for generations. People still fish, still repair their own homes, still heat with wood. The younger generation is layering remote tech work onto traditional island skills, creating a hybrid model that actually works. Storm watching becomes entertainment, canning becomes necessity, community becomes infrastructure. The ferry is your lifeline, the ocean is your calendar, and the cost of living is manageable because the culture never fully bought into consumerism. This is Atlantic resilience, practical, unpretentious, and effective. Would you embrace storm isolation for the trade-off of affordable coastal living? Number 7. Telegraph Creek, British Columbia. Telegraph Creek is accessible only by gravel road and operates almost entirely off-grid by necessity, not choice. This is one of BC's most remote communities, about 250 people, mostly Indigenous, living along the Stikine River. There's no grid power. Diesel generators and solar panels are standard. The landscape is rugged. The culture is self-sufficient. Life moves at the pace of the river. Population sits around 250 and remains stable. Housing availability is limited. Land leases are more common. Cost pressure is very low with minimal taxes and no utilities. Work includes guiding, trapping, government contracts, and subsistence. First Nations land access and federal northern programs provide support. Mail plane deliveries still happen in winter. Fuel barrels line driveways like mailboxes in suburbs. The gravel road is treacherous in winter and closed entirely during spring thaw. Imagine living where your power comes from the sun, your water from the river, and your calendar follows salmon runs, not work shifts. Telegraph Creek isn't a place you move to casually. It's a commitment. The road in is 120 kilometers of steep, narrow gravel that tests vehicles and nerves. The river canyon is spectacular. The isolation is absolute. Cell service doesn't exist. Supply runs are major events. But people here aren't surviving. They're living deliberately. The skills required are real: mechanical repair, food preservation, wilderness navigation. The community is tight. Everyone helps because everyone needs help eventually. This is subsistence-adjacent modern life. You're not hunting for all your food, but you're definitely supplementing. You're not entirely off-grid, but you're managing your own power. It's the edge of modern infrastructure, and that edge creates freedom for people willing to adapt. Could you handle being cut off by road for weeks at a time? Number 8. Hazelton, British Columbia. Hazelton blends Indigenous heritage with accessible off-grid opportunities, surrounded by crown land and minimal enforcement. About 300 people live in the village, with thousands more in surrounding rural areas. The region is mountainous, forested, and culturally significant. People hunt, fish, and live seasonally. The cost of entry is low. The land is abundant. Village population is around 300, with about 5,000 in the region. Housing runs from 100,000 to 200,000. Cost pressure is low. Property taxes are negligible. Work includes forestry, guiding, indigenous governance, and remote work. BC offers northern tax credits and loose rural zoning. You can still find $20,000 land parcels. People measure distance in hours, not kilometers. Internet is satellite only in most areas, limiting certain remote work options. Picture a small homestead where your biggest monthly cost is propane and your income comes from seasonal work and online freelancing. Hazelton sits at the confluence of the Bulkley and Skeena rivers, in territory that's been continuously inhabited for thousands of years. The totem poles here aren't replicas, they're living culture. The surrounding mountains hold old-growth forests and unmapped valleys. This is a place where cultural preservation and modern off-grid living aren't in conflict. They're the same impulse, maintaining autonomy in the face of systems that demand conformity. Land here is still accessible, not free, but achievable. A few years of saving can buy outright ownership. From there, building codes are suggestions more than rules. You can experiment, you can fail, you can adapt, and the cost of failure isn't bankruptcy, it's lessons learned. Would satellite internet be enough for you to live off-grid? If you're still watching, you're starting to see the pattern. These aren't just cheap towns. They're systems where independence reduces pressure instead of increasing it. Most people never consider this because we're taught that opportunity only exists in cities. But when costs rise faster than income, these places start to make sense. Stay with me. Number 9. Bella Coola. British Columbia Bella Coola sits at the end of one of BC's most dramatic highways, offering fjord access and off-grid living without total isolation. About 2,000 people live in the valley. The region is wet, green, and mountainous. Grizzlies are common. Salmon runs define the season. The culture is a mix of First Nations tradition and resourceful homesteaders. Life is slow, practical, and beautiful. Population remains stable around 2,000. Housing ranges from 150,000 to 300,000. Cost pressure is moderate. Food costs are higher, but land is cheap. Work includes fishing, forestry, tourism, and government services. BC offers rural development grants. The highway is considered one of Canada's most dangerous. Everyone knows when the salmon arrive, and work stops accordingly. The road in and out is steep, winding, and not for nervous drivers. Imagine a valley where your neighbors are bears, your grocery store is the river, and your heating bill is a chainsaw and a truck. Bella Coola Valley is the kind of place that shows up in nature documentaries. The mountains rise straight from the ocean. The rainforest is thick and primordial. The salmon runs are so abundant that bears line the rivers like commuters at a bus stop. Living here means accepting that nature has priority. You adapt your schedule to weather, wildlife, and seasons, but in exchange, you get beauty that most people only see in photos, and you get space, physical, financial, mental. The highway keeps tourists minimal. The valley keeps development slow. And the result is a place where people still live on their own terms. It's wet, it's remote, and it works. Would you drive the hill on Highway 20 to live in a fjord valley? Number 10. Dawson Creek, British Columbia. Dawson Creek is the start of the Alaska Highway, with a practical farming culture that supports off-grid homesteading. This is agricultural country. The town has about 12,000 people, but the surrounding rural area is vast. Winters are cold, summers are productive. People grow food, raise livestock, and heat with wood or propane. The economy is stable. The culture is grounded. Population sits at around 12,000 and remains stable. Housing ranges from 200,000 to 350,000. Cost pressure is moderate. Services are available but not mandatory. Work includes agriculture, oil and gas, trades, and retail. BC's Northern Living Allowance applies, and farmland gets tax breaks. You can still buy farmland under $100,000. Hardware stores outnumber coffee shops. You'll need a vehicle. Everything is spread out and public transit doesn't exist. Picture 10 acres, a small house, chickens, a greenhouse, and a monthly budget under $1,000 because you own everything outright. Dawson Creek is functional off-grid living. It's not wilderness survival. It's rural agriculture with modern amenities available when you need them. The soil is productive. The growing season is short but intense. People here grow serious amounts of food, not hobby gardens, but actual subsistence production. Root cellars are standard. Canning is common. Greenhouses extend the season. This is northern farming done right, adapted to climate, focused on resilience, and economically viable. The town itself has everything you need: medical services, schools, hardware, and grocery stores. But the rural areas around it offer space and land at prices that make ownership realistic. You can work part-time in town and farm part-time at home. You can freelance online and raise animals. The options are flexible. Would you trade urban convenience for land ownership and food security? Number 11. Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. Tumbler Ridge is a planned town built for mining, now offering affordable housing and access to wilderness living as the industry stabilizes. About 2,000 people live here. The town is modern, with paved roads and services, but surrounded by wilderness. Dinosaur fossils, waterfalls, and hiking trails define the area. The culture is practical. The cost of entry is low. Population remains stable around 2,000. Housing ranges from 100,000 to 200,000. Cost pressure is low. Taxes and utilities are manageable. Work centers on mining, trades, tourism, and remote work. BC offers infrastructure grants for rural areas. The town has a geopark designation, attracting ecotourism. Kids grow up hiking to dinosaur trackways, like city kids go to parks. Economic stability depends heavily on mining activity, which fluctuates. Imagine a modern home in a small town, surrounded by wilderness, where your mortgage is $500 a month and adventure is out your back door. Tumbler Ridge is unusual. It's a planned community that didn't boom and bust like most resource towns. It's stabilized. The housing stock is modern. The infrastructure is good. The schools exist. But the population never exploded, which means housing stayed affordable. You get small-town amenities with wilderness access. The hiking here is world-class. The fossils are legitimately significant. The waterfalls are spectacular, and you can own a 3-bedroom house for the price of a used car in Vancouver. The trade-off is economic dependence on mining. When the mines are working, the town thrives. When they're not, things get quiet. But the cost of living is low enough that even reduced income is manageable. Would you move to a mining town if housing cost half of what you pay now? Number 12. Ronge. Saskatchewan. Ronge sits on the edge of Saskatchewan's northern wilderness, offering lake access, low costs, and a culture of self-reliance. About 2,700 people live here, surrounded by boreal forest and thousands of lakes. Winters are harsh. Summers are short and intense. People fish, trap, and live simply. The town has services, but the surrounding area is wide open. Population remains stable, around 2,700. Housing ranges from 100,000 to 200,000. Cost pressure is low. Heating is the main expense. Work includes indigenous services, tourism, forestry, and government. Saskatchewan offers northern tax deductions. You can still lease crown land for recreation. Ice roads open entire regions in winter that are inaccessible in summer. Winters are long, dark, and cold. Mental resilience matters as much as practical skills. Picture a cabin on a lake, heated with wood, where your biggest expense is fuel for the snowmobile that gets you to town. Ronge is Prairie, Canada's version of northern living. Less mountainous than BC, less maritime than Newfoundland, but equally self-reliant. The lakes here number in the thousands. The fishing is exceptional. The forest is dense but navigable. This is a place where ice roads are critical infrastructure, where frozen lakes become highways, and where distance is measured in travel time, not kilometers. The culture is a mix of indigenous tradition, trapping heritage, and modern remote work. People here aren't pretending to live in the past. They're using old skills with new tools. Solar panels charge satellite internet, snowmobiles access trap lines, freezers preserve fish caught through the ice. It's hybrid, practical, and effective. The cold is real, the isolation is real, but so is the freedom. Would you embrace winter isolation for year-round lake access and minimal bills? These 12 communities don't share geography or climate. What they share is structure. In every case, living independently costs less than living dependently. That's not ideology, it's math. When housing, heating, and daily systems don't require constant income, financial pressure drops. This matters because most Canadians are trapped in systems where expenses rise faster than wages. The solution isn't always more income. Sometimes it's different structure. Land instead of rent, wood heat instead of gas bills, skills instead of services. Off-grid living isn't about rejecting modern life. It's about choosing environments where self-reliance reduces stress instead of increasing it. These towns aren't perfect, but they're examples of how Canadians are building lives with fewer bills, more control, and long-term stability. The pattern is clear: lower dependency, more resilience, less financial pressure. That pattern exists across Canada in dozens of communities like these. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. If this made you think differently about where and how you live, that's the point. This channel explores real alternatives to high-cost living, not to sell you a dream, but to show you systems that work. We don't chase trends, we observe patterns. We don't hype solutions, we explore trade-offs, and we focus on long-term thinking. If that makes sense, subscribe. We'll keep mapping the places and practices that make independence affordable. This is Loving Canadian Towns. Thanks for watching. Settings: add all caps subtitles with a spoken word highlight. Use YouTube audio library, only use appropriate media. Use a male voice with a Pacific Northwest accent for the narrator.